Across the street?
Across the street.
All right.
I was going to honk, but I didn't want to be too creepy. My blacked out truck.
I might that's all recorded. I might just leave that as the
intro.
All right. So welcome to the Reflections Podcast, episode 8. I apologize. It's been a while. Life gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
I am here with one of my best friends of all time. The one and only Duke Sage, a.k.a. Matt. Thanks for joining me today, buddy.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
It's an honor.
Murdoch is here as well as always, making noise. Looking confused. Anyway.
Bushy tails.
So why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself real quick.
I'm Matt, as you know, and I was in Alove For Enemies. As well as Eric was, obviously. I'm a mechanic. What else? I have a dog named Diesel. He's an Australian Shepherd. Cattle herding dog. Ooh, man. No water, huh? No,
I can get you some water. Do you want water?
No, I'm just kidding.
Should have done that before we started.
What else? Yeah, that's about it. I play bass and some guitar. Yeah.
And some accordion.
And some... well, I won't say what else I play, but...
Some flute.
But yeah. How long have we known each other? I feel like it's been forever.
Man.
Or not even. I feel like yesterday we were at the Peter Pan diner.
You know what, man? It's almost 20 years.
Wow. Oh, God.
It really is.
Oh, my gosh.
It's almost 20 years. It's coming up on 20 years.
Wow. Man.
Maybe it's like 18 right now. Jeez. I think it's like 18 and a half, 19 years.
Yeah, something like that. Oh, my goodness.
Jeez.
So, yeah, it's...
well, it was pre-September 11th because we were in New Hampshire like the day after or the day before. So we were somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Playing a show. Like, I think it was a couple days after.
Yeah.
It was after. It was definitely after.
Yeah, because I remember when we were coming back, we got stopped right in the city. Yeah, and they wanted to take all of our equipment out of the trailer.
That happened on more than one occasion.
Oh, yeah.
So, Reflections, this podcast is a philosophy-based podcast. I know you said you listened to some of Dan's, the
duo.
So, basically, it's kind of a free-flowing conversation, and I'll kick it off if you're ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, I always like to start with, what do you think, or what is your, elevator pitch when someone asks you what philosophy is? What is your short version of what you believe philosophy to mean? No wrong answer.
No wrong answer. Man, what's funny is I always think about this, and when it comes to the question, I'm draw blanks. But there's a band called Strong Arm, and they had there's a quote by them, and one of their lyrics, it was, what cannot break you can only be a catalyst, for your growth. And I feel like that's one thing I've pretty much lived by, just making sure nothing breaks me. Even though lots of stuff comes at me all the time, every day, all the time, it's just one thing after another. And I don't like drama, and I stay away from drama or anything that has to do with bringing me down. But it's just that's one thing that I feel like has stayed with me since I was probably 16, I guess, maybe, or 17 is when, I don't know.
Now we're really dating ourselves now.
Yeah, I can't even remember, but yeah, that's pretty much a foundation, I guess. I pretty much, when you're in your teens, you find something, and I guess it kind of brings you up. And I feel like that's one thing that I definitely have lived by, because that's just a resounding quote that just always pops up throughout my life, because it's when something comes at you, you just use it to push you forward. So I feel like that's one thing that really hits, that gets me going every morning.
Like cup of coffee.
Yeah. I mean, that's as you know, on tour, there was always something, a flat tire, Georgia. Just people, lack of money, whatever, two people at your show are just playing for another band, or or today, in this day, it's like, when you have a supervisor that just always, irks you, or customer, or whatever. It's just, or just whatever is going on in your life at that moment. Whatever tries to break you, you just like kind of flip it and try to make it push you forward. And, I always kind of make it like something that's like, all right, I gotta make this not get to me.
Right.
So, it's kind of like a foundation of, I guess you could say, my philosophy.
That's pretty good. I mean, normally what I do is I follow that up with, give some examples of how you've applied it, but you kind of did both in one there, so that's pretty cool. So that saved me from having to go there.
And for anybody listening, I'm using hand gestures because my Italian comes out. Even I do that on the phone too. I must look like a crazy person if I'm walking around outside on the phone, because I'm just using my hands like, oh yeah, like I'm talking to someone right there. But, yeah,
I like it.
yeah.
Well, that's fascinating too, because that's such a, when you boil it down, that's such a, I don't want to say simple in a bad way, but kind of a basic foundation that can guide you in so many different areas. It's not even funny. I mean, literally that one principle you described can guide you almost through any situation.
Oh yeah.
And to me, that's philosophy, if almost ideally, because you're not complicating it. You're not having to think about all the different variables and different ways you can respond to a situation. If that's your guiding principle and that's kind of your guiding philosophy, it really kind of makes it minimal and easy to execute.
Oh yeah. It's just, yeah. And it always comes up every day. I mean, there's always something every day in everybody's life, it could be a big thing or a small thing, like even
That's
making
true.
like a choice or whatever. It's just, anything. Even now, it opens up, like social media now opens up for stuff like that, for attack or of anything, because everybody has an opinion and everybody steps up onto their soapbox, on Facebook to say what they want to say. And I think that's a lesson that I've learned, that I took a break from Facebook for 4 years, which was probably one of the best things in my life.
Yeah,
and
you're not the first guest to say something like that.
Yeah, and and it's just funny. It's like so many people think that's life, is Facebook and social media, Snapchat or Instagram or whatever else is new. Twitter, I guess. I never really got into that really, but but yeah, I mean, it's you can, it's always coming at you on Facebook. I mean, it's not even the world anymore, like outside of like social media. It's just social media itself is always it
made the world a lot smaller and gave everybody a microphone,
and,
which
easier.
is ironic, as here I am speaking into a microphone.
Well, yeah, it's probably gonna be on Facebook, but
Exactly.
It makes it easier because when you don't see a person, you can argue with them till they quit, I guess you could say.
Pretty much, yeah.
But or till they you get to them, but it's just it comes up in every area of life, everything, in the real world, I guess you could say, in the Facebook, the Twitter.
Yeah.
So
it's fascinating. A couple things from that piece that you were just talking about. Number one, almost every guest organically brings up the social media thing, and I think it's obvious to see why, because it's such it's such a sign of the times, I think. And if used improperly, it could certainly, I've seen it literally destroy relationships. I've seen it make friends not be friends anymore. I've seen it do a bunch of stuff, but I've also seen it on the other side. I've seen positive sides of it. Like I wrote an article for Pocket Stoic not that long ago, and in that article it explains how I kind of came to be interested in Stoicism in general, and obviously the Annalise was a big part of that whole experience. And I had this lady from I think Scandinavia. Either Norway, Finland, something like that. I'm having a senior moment, but anyway, this woman wrote me this huge message on Facebook because that's where she was able to find me, I guess. And she was born with a heart defect, and her parents struggled, and she continues to struggle with this. She's a grown woman now; she's about our age, and she's faced all these challenges in her life. And my article touched her, and it was literally the only response I got from that article in terms of somebody actually saying something. I've had people say, hey, I really enjoyed it, blah blah blah, but it was the only one that got really deep. And so that's not only an example of if it weren't for Facebook, as much as I hate to say it, she wouldn't be able to found me, and that inspired me in turn. But also besides that, and if you remember, in the band days, I used to say this all the time. Like, if we reach that one kid, the whole thing is worth it. So for me, being a novice, and I'm being generous, writer, to have that one person reach out to you like that is kind of cool. It's kind of an interesting feeling. Oh yeah, well, that's the catch about social media. It could be used for good, but it's like the Force.
Exactly. There's the Jedi, and then there's also the Sith that lurks there in the dark, and they always try to bring people down. But
and it's actually that's a funny analogy for not only for the nerdy reason, but the Force in general. It stems from so much ancient mythology and philosophy. A lot of Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung, we talked about it on another episode too, but like that collective unconsciousness kind of vibe, and that's what the Force is. It connects us, it binds us, blah, blah, blah. And it's funny because when you think about social media and the Force, the joke we just made, it kind of makes more sense when you think of it that way, because it's connecting all of us. And some people are using it to do good things, and some people are not,
it's
what I
both
mean?
Good and bad.
So fake news. But,
fake news.
So I want to backpedal a little bit. So when we started, you were talking about Strong Arm, who I also love dearly, as an influence with that, planting that seed that helped you build upon that principle. Was there any other influences either back then or currently, of any kind? Doesn't have to be music. It could be any kind of influence, family member, writer, whatever. Or is there other things that you drew from that help kind of shape your personal philosophy?
There was a lot of, it's going to sound funny and weird, but there's movies out there with different quotes and stuff that really actually as silly as the actors are, or, as funny as they are, there's, in the script, they write in these quotes that are just like, it makes total sense, and it's just funny, like looking back on it and seeing who said it, and what his character is that said it. But there's a
nothing sounds stupid on this
I know
podcast.
it's nothing that sounds stupid. It's kind of silly looking back, because it's the Rocky Balboa is like, what is it, like the 5th or 6th, or I don't even know what they're up to installment. But there's a quote. He's talking to his son, who's complaining about like being in a shadow, but out in the real world, it's I guess pushing him down because of Rocky being who he is. But he says that the world isn't all rainbows and sunshine. It's a cruel place, and it will knock you down and try to keep you there. But you gotta keep pushing forward and get up and keep throwing the punches as hard as as hard as the punches are coming at you. And that was also a big one too, because it's I think at the time I was going through something that was like pretty big, and it was life was really like it was kicking the crap out of me. Like it really wanted to keep me down and submit me there until I broke. But like just thinking back at like even the silliest quote from a movie, it's like it really like when you wake up and look in the mirror, you kind of like just remember that quote or say it to you, and you just kind of remind yourself through the day, and you have the moments where it's like it sort of breaks you. It doesn't really break you, but it kind of like it tears at you, a little bit deeper than you want to, but you just kind of remind yourself. You kind of like get up and wipe that the tear out of your eye or the sweat from the worry or stress or the anxiety. And, you just think of even the silliest quote like that. I mean, it's not really silly, but it's like, coming from a character like Rocky Balboa. But, stuff like that. And even like, the movie 300, it's kind of cool to think that it's not just King Leonidas, it's the whole 300. They're all a link, they're one link. It's not like one person's more important than the other. It's all of them working together to defeat an army of 10 to 1. And there's no one person that's better than the other. They're all equal, and they all are needed to push through. And even if they were defeated, they're still got that that much closer to 10 to 1 odds or whatever it was that they said. I'm pretty sure it was 10 to 1, but yeah, it's like stuff like that. It's like movies, because I'm not that I'm a movie buff, but I really enjoy watching movies.
Well, I don't think that's weird at all. But I think there's films. The beauty of a good movie is what makes it a good movie is your opinion of it, nobody else's, right? Which is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, like it's a visual storytelling, obviously, and they're almost always based on a written story, whether it's a book, a novel, screenplay. Either way, it's a story that's coming out of somebody's head onto paper first before it's a movie. So I feel like there's a lot of I think as you get older and you watch certain movies, you see things that you're like, oh, you know what I mean? Because like when you're younger, and especially action movies in particular, sometimes those things hide in there because you're so distracted by the action and stuff. Now, I'm not saying that like, there's deep philosophical meaning in Death Wish or something like that. But
they're making a new one, by the way.
Oh God,
Bruce Willis is in it.
Oh, stop! I don't even want to talk about this. It's terrible. I got to pick a different example. But it's cool about 300 is obviously based on historical event. Yeah. And I read Gates of Fire, which is the book that's a little bit more historically accurate than Frank Miller's
graphic novel.
Half naked dudes kind of vibe. But there's always a moral, to any story. And if you can draw those from anything that you see that can stick to you, that's the cool thing about philosophy is it's not something you have to go to school for, and it's not always academic. Like you always don't have to read a book and take a test. Like you're taking different pieces of things that you're encountering in your life that are applying to you in such a profound way, like the Rocky quote, right? It sounds silly on the surface level, but if you think about it, that little piece of that moral of that part of the story, you were able to kind of assimilate it into your own, personal philosophy, and kind of take that piece and put it with all the other pieces that make up yourself, and now it's a part of you. Just because of where you got it's irrelevant. You know what I mean? Because now you're using that as an influence to face a challenge or overcome an obstacle, and that's why. Sorry, Murdoch. I don't know what he's doing. That's why I'm so intrigued by it, and that's why I enjoy talking to other people about it, because the pieces that I took up along the way are not necessarily the same as yours, and it doesn't mean that my viewpoint or my philosophy is correct and yours is wrong, or vice versa. It just means we're human. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's what's cool about it. And that's why I enjoy these conversations, because you learn, even people that you've known for almost 20 years, you learn things and you're like, huh. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it's not something that you sit around and talk about on a normal basis. And I feel like everybody you and I know I can have on here, and every single one will be interesting. Oh yeah. You know what I mean? That's Absolutely. What's cool about it. So,
oh man, you guys alone, less than you guys in the band, Alove For Enemies. Drawing stuff from even friends like you guys, the band, just when we would tour and just laugh and have fun, or even like times when we were almost at each other's throat, or throwing a temper tantrum, that was most likely me. But friends, and seeing how they deal with stuff through life, kind of like seeing where you guys dealing with stuff that's hard to deal with, and thinking about like, I don't even know how I would deal with that, and probably wouldn't take it as as good as you guys would, or just deal with it as best as you guys do, and like that kind of like pushes me to be better, or even to like deal with situations in a better way like you guys do, and or even my dad, for instance, like he very plain guy, doesn't really like have favorite like anything. he literally loves just sitting on the couch watching like TV. It could be the weirdest things, like the Catholic channel or something like that, which is, I mean, to me it's weird, I guess.
I didn't even know there was a Catholic channel.
Oh yeah, it's
what's on the Catholic channel?
Oh, just nuns and priests and stuff.
Like, what is it, just masses?
They talk. Yeah, it's like low
budge. They got talk shows and stuff?
Yeah, the talk show. Oh yeah, it's like
man, I never knew this. I remember as a kid, like the infomercials and stuff, but that's not Catholic per se. That's just
no, it's very strange. I mean, he occasionally watches like soccer and stuff, but anyway, that's besides stuff.
So the steady diet of the Catholic channel with an occasional soccer match.
Oh yeah. But now he's actually been watching a lot of like movies on Netflix. I put my Netflix account on the TV, the smart TV.
Don't let Netflix hear you say that. It's a violation of terms.
I mean, it's somehow happened to get on there, but my dad he just does things. He just does things. Like someone asks him to pick him up, he'll go and pick them up. No whining, no nothing. He'll just want to do nice things. Like it's just the weirdest thing. Like it's like not many people will do that. People be like, well, can you throw me some money for gas or whatever. Just like, but he'll cater to people, and it's beyond me how he deals with that.
If I remember correctly, he bailed us out on a few occasions.
Oh yeah, oh man. Well, I don't remember specifically when he. Oh wait. Well, I just remember this one time that it's gonna sound funny. It was me and Andy and his wife at the time, or girlfriend at the time. Her and her friends, they were having a birthday party, and it was on a party bus. And we were driving around, and there was some strange, she had some strange friends, or her friend was having a birthday too, so they were on the bus. They were very strange and very, I guess at the time you could say Jersey Shore like people. So they were bumping and grinding and doing whatever they were doing. At the end of the night, when everybody's done being drunk and kind of sobering up, everybody's getting moody. One kid tripped over Andy's girlfriend's friend's leg, and blurted out an obscenity that was quite insulting. And Andy, being like half drunk, maybe coming out of it or something. No, I wouldn't say drunk. I shouldn't say that. But he was a little tipsy, so he got offended, and the situation escalated. And let's just say it ended in with
how have I never heard this story?
Oh my gosh! I think I broke my ring finger. Not my finger, but my knuckle. Breaking up a fight. It wasn't
wow,
a malicious act, but it was an helpful act. But anyways, long story short, we got kicked off the bus on like some exit of the LIE. It was like 2:00 in the morning.
You're on the road?
Oh, yeah.
Like literally on the expressway?
Party bus driving down the expressway. Some random exit. I don't even remember. My knuckle is killing me. And it's just maybe like 4 or 5 of us, on the side of the road. And I just remember calling my dad, waking up in the middle of the night. And I was like, hey, weird thing, but we're on the side of the LIE. And all he said was, oh, what exit? you know, and he came and got us, and he says, everybody all right? And I said, yeah. He's like, oh, okay. You want me to bring you to your car, or do you want me to drop people up? Like, not even asking, like, what's going on? Why did you do this? You know, normally people would be like, you know, why are you waking me up at this hour for something as stupid like that? It just woke up, no problem. You know, not even no problem. He just went, you know, it's like stuff like that just like is a very, you know, just want to achieve something like that, you know, with like, it seems like the greatest patience in the world and just not like, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's like doing something good with no desire for reward or
exactly.
anything like that.
It's just like one, that's like, I don't know. I mean, that's like his like greatest achievement, I guess you could say, in his life. And it's very like, you know, I would love to aspire to that, I guess you could say. I don't know how he does it. You know, he worked in the court system, and he saw a lot of bad people come through, you know, which would probably make someone
do it.
very angry, you know, but
Yeah.
he always kept his cool.
Yeah,
Not like he's a very, you know,
excitable.
You know, Chuck Norris kind of guy, you know. But, you know, he's just very, I guess, slow to speak, if you would say, I guess, kind of guy.
Yeah. That actually reminded me of a quote. That's what I was looking for, but you know, I failed.
Slow to anger.
But yeah, that's interesting because that is simply someone leading by example without even like doing it from a sense of ego, just doing it because that's your real that's his real nature.
Yeah, that's,
you know, and I feel like that's where you learn from people the most. You know, like somebody that has the look at me, this is how you do it kind of attitude, I feel like aren't the best teachers, right? But the people that impact us in our life are usually the quiet, like they just are. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
sit back and watch.
Exactly. And that's where you can really learn from people because they're not actively trying to teach you a lesson. They're just living. And, you know, when you look at somebody like that and let's say the tables were turned or you're in a different situation where somebody woke you up in the middle of the night and then you were like, what the hell, man? Like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, you kind of have that opportunity to, when somebody like that does something like that for you, you kind of like have that opportunity to reflect on it. Like, man, I need to be more like that, you know? And you just kind of do it. There's no magic formula or seminar you have to go to. It's just, it becomes at the forefront of your mind, and that, as we said before, that's another piece of that personal philosophy puzzle.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Well, let me tell you, it's not easy. It's not easy being that patient, or even that like you know, fly off, you know, the handle of being nice, you know, instead of like being angry. Because you know, I've tried to be, you know, and I'm a pretty patient person, but like. I've become a pretty patient person, I should say. And, you know, I'm still not as patient as one like that as my dad, because it's like, you know, there's some people that just like, you know, it's it's like, you know, that cartoon where it's like, I want to push the button, I want to push the button, I want to push the button. And you try to ignore it as much as possible. And it's like, stop, you're not going to push the button. Yeah. But it's just, it's hard, you know, not to like, you know, snap, you know, just especially in this day and age with all the stuff that's going on, everything that the media throws at you, you know, like it's just like so much. They just search for things that's like they know that's like going to irk people.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like,
I mean, I think now, if you think about, you know, if you think about philosophers back in the day, right? In fact, I'm going to start. You know, people that are listening to this can start a drinking game every time I say the word philosophy. But back then they, you know, and I've touched on this briefly, but they were kind of like in their own existence without distractions like we have today. Like their job was to be a philosopher, right? They didn't have a cell phone bill, or
lucky
they didn't feel like they had to answer the notification on their phone. You know, if they were staring at a waterfall for 4 hours, that's what they were doing. You know what I mean? And if you wanted to talk to that person, you had to wait till they came back from the waterfall. End of story. Even if it was an emergency, like, nope, he's at the waterfall. No, you know, not gonna be back for a couple hours, whatever. So, but it's interesting because I think we're at the point in our society, in modern society, that we're so overstimulated with things like that, distractions. And I don't just mean social media. I mean, it could be anything. It's just modern life in general. You know, you have all these millions of things that are happening every day. You know, you got news, you know, TV, movies, drama, car payments, bills,
notifications,
stress,
updates,
job stress, family stress, friend stress, girlfriend, wife, whatever. You know, you have all these things to navigate through. And I think anger is one of those things that can sweep the leg so quick, because we walk such a fine line between keeping it together, you know what I mean, and losing it. And I don't think we realize how tricky that can be, because if you could have the clearest, most like, nope, this is my philosophy, these are my influences, this is how I treat people. You can have the most buttoned up version of that you can ask for. But anger can make you go from that to a raving lunatic so fast. And that's a big one to, that's a challenge for everybody, myself included. Like, that's the one thing where, you know, I constantly get bested by it. You know, and it's difficult because, you know, especially in this society where you got to worry about who you're offending, and like all that kind of stuff is just added on top of all of that. So even if you're not even allowed to say, I didn't like that, it bothered me, you know what I mean, without being accused of being somebody awful just because you said you didn't like something. So there's this constant stress level, I think, in all of us, and that's why I think we almost need to go backwards, and maybe Murdoch,
someone's itchy.
We almost need to go backwards and kind of pull a Yoda where we unlearn everything we've learned, because you know, we got to go back to the basics here, and how we treat each other and how we talk to each other. And it's just kind of like, I feel like you can have a real conversation with somebody even if you don't disagree with them. I mean, if you don't, I'm sorry, even if you don't agree with them on anything, and still be respectful about it. And
absolutely.
And that's what people, I think that's what's getting lost. Like, it's either, you know, you're one thing or the other. That's it. There's no in between. There's no talking about it. You're on this team or that team. That kind of mentality is so dangerous. And I don't think people realize that we're being groomed and polarized on purpose, you know? And, I don't know. I think as a human race, forget about what country you're from, what color your skin is, or any of that stuff. As a human race, like, all we really have is each other. And I feel like we need to kind of go backwards. We really need to go backwards. And like, maybe we do need to smash our phone, smash our TV, whatever some, you know, extremists would say. Maybe they're onto something there. Maybe we have to go back to where we're just sitting around a campfire telling stories to each other, or walking to the market and talking, you know, striking up a conversation with somebody. I don't know. I mean, obviously that's not realistic, but I think in our own heads, if we just kind of just incorporate a little piece of that, if we all did that,
absolutely,
how much better would things be?
You know what I mean? And and learning about all my friends and stuff, like, everybody's different. Everybody has, like, even if I have like one view that's the same as one other person, they have, you know, a different view on something else. You know, it's just like everybody has, like, you know, at least one different view, or if not more, or all different views on stuff. And I've been friends with a lot of different people with a lot of different views, and, you know, and I've gotten along with them. You know, I've probably disagreed with either, you know, 50% of what they say or 100% of what they say, you know, but I'll be, I'll try to be, you know, civil. And it's hard, you know, but it's, you know, it's possible. But I think it's, you know, where it comes to patience and listening, you know, and it's just hard to listen these days because, like you said, everything's so muffled by whatever's going on in life, you know, the news, family, like you said, girlfriend, wife, you know, even, you know, dogs, you got to take them out all the time.
We're getting stared at now. You said the OUT word.
I said, oops. Yeah, I know that. But yeah, you know, it's just, there's so much, it's just, it comes down to listening, you know, like, I think I've had the opportunity lately to talk online on Facebook with people, and, you know, actually really ask questions about things that I might disagree with so I can understand it a little better. Even though I still disagree with it, I still, like, I understand more about it, you know?
Yeah,
and I
and
think,
that's a good thing to do.
yeah, you know, just be more, sensitive maybe to it, or just aware of what it is and where they're coming from.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and I think that's good, you know, and I feel like, you know, if it was, you know, to be, it to be returned as well to me, you know, they would understand where I'm coming from and why I disagree with it, but at the same time still respect them as human beings that I have to, you know, coexist with, you know, we're all here on one planet, you know,
Yeah.
we have to live on it, you know, all together and upkeep it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the trickiest part too, because people like yourself that are kind of taking upon yourself to like learn, right?
Yeah.
The biggest obstacle to that is the other person not reciprocating.
Well, yeah.
And that's not one demographic of people. That could be anybody really. But like that's always where the problem starts, where it's like, okay, you want to know why I don't like chocolate chip cookies. Right, and you're like, how could you not like chocolate chip cookies?
Seriously.
Like, I do, by the way. I'm just
Okay,
making a bad analogy. And, you know, so you want to know why. And I tell you this whole thing about how the factories are unethical and yada, yada, yada. And that's why I don't like chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah.
While I'm wearing sneakers from a sweatshop. But that's besides the point. So
I think we all are.
So I tell you that whole spiel. And then you're like, well, I like, and I'm just like, no, shut up. You're wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not giving you the opportunity to, you know, explore. And it's kind of interesting because I feel like it's, people do that without even thinking that's what they're doing, you know, and that's the obstacle that I think if we're all just aware of that, like, okay, this person wants to hear where I'm coming from. I need to return that respect and understand it the other way. Even again, to beat this dead horse even more, if you go back to ancient philosophers, like think about how different those schools were. You know, you talk about the Stoics and the Cynics, or whatever group you want to pick, whatever two groups. It's the same thing. They had some similarities, but a lot of them, Aristotle and you know, his predecessors especially. I mean, they had some really, really key points that they just did not think the same about. You know, so one has to wonder, like, did they argue?
Oh yeah, they must have stood around and argued.
They must have done something.
You know, I couldn't imagine standing there trying to explain why the earth is round and not flat, or vice versa. You know what I'm saying?
That's a whole nother can of worms, because now we've gone backwards and people think it's flat again.
Oh yeah, I could definitely see that. Not like we have anything in outer space looking down.
It's all fake, man. It's all CGI.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So, but yeah, it's just you got to wonder. Like, I wish there was video of that, even though that's not where, you know, if I had a time machine, maybe, but like
in their toga. Oh, maybe they don't have toga.
And plus, I probably wouldn't understand the language they're speaking now to think about it, even if I had a time machine. But you know, it's just kind of interesting to think about how, because if you have two presidential candidates that can't even have a conversation, right? And as kids, especially if you think about politicians, your view of politicians when you're a kid versus now. When you're a kid, you're like, oh, those are adults. They make the rules. They make these things happen. Oh man, those are real adults. Then that what a politician is composed of has not changed since we're a kid.
No,
they're all
the same.
They're all the same, and nothing's changed what makes them up. But when you're older, you're listening to, it doesn't matter who it is. I'm not even saying one or the other, because I don't care. But if you listen to them, you're like, what, are you kidding me? And then you start to talk to your parents and your uncles and aunts, and you're like, no, that's kind of how politicians have always been. This is nothing different for us. Like, Jesus, these are the people running the damn show here. You know, so it's just kind of interesting that, like, you know, to be cliche, the real change starts with us.
Oh yeah.
You know, how we talk and treat each other.
Well, yeah.
You know, that's kind of in our hands.
It's like part of also, I guess you could say, the philosophy is to that old you know, pay it forward, you know, kind of thing, you know, like, and it doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm going to pay for the person behind me. Like, I think at 7-Eleven the other day, I just so happened to be going in, and there was a girl behind me that wanted to go in, and she was pretty, so I opened the door for her. But also at the same time, there's a lady coming out that was elderly, so I held the door for her too. It wasn't like, oh, I'm just holding it for the pretty woman or a pretty lady, but it's showing that I'm not just like, oh yeah, whatever for you, like, oh, I'm just letting the pretty lady in, you got to show that you you love everybody. Also going out, I held the door for like the FedEx guy, and there's
FedEx guy.
Yeah,
I could see UPS guy, but a FedEx guy.
I wanted him to be on time, but stuff like that. Or there was this dude, this guy that. He's the guy that delivers the water to our work, for the water machine where everybody, gossips at. But actually, no one really gossips at the water anymore. I think
Scuttlebutt.
Is it a fax machine now or something? I don't know.
Anyways, smart fridge.
This guy, he's pretty jacked, but he's holding like two huge,
he's
water jugs
all day.
But he has both. Yeah, he's got them both in his hands, and he can't open the door. I ran over to the door to open them up. So I know it's always me opening a door for someone, but it's not just that too. I mean,
no, it's
if
the
someone's
principle.
short of money, I'll lend them money too.
Well, I could use about 7,500 if you got it.
So could I. But it starts with showing that like just by opening a door.
Yeah, no, of course, and that's when you think about getting older, and you inevitably at some point contemplate why you're here.
Yeah.
To get really deep for a second, and you start to understand like, well, I wasn't a movie star. I didn't win the lottery. I didn't invent the electric car.
I wish.
What am I doing? And I think that's a dangerous question to ask in a lot of ways because you're placing comparisons that are so irrelevant. It's not even funny. But what you can do is exist in the best way you can so that those around you, and if you have kids or just people you're close with, can all learn from that, and then you all learn together. And theoretically, if all that goes as planned, you will have left the world better than you found it.
Oh yeah.
And that's what's more important than being a movie star or any of those other things. And that's really, I think we all have that in us. We all have that ability in us. Like being the best version of yourself is why you're here.
Oh yeah.
It's not it's not as complex as people think. And this transcends all religious or philosophical beliefs because that's what's wrong with being the best version of yourself. You know what I mean? And that's like a thing, speaking about religion, which I've touched on in almost every episode, but, my views are not the same as they used to be, and they probably won't be the same tomorrow. Those things are that's a very complicated subject for me in my adult years, especially with the things I've been through, et cetera. But one thing that always I used to say to people at shows when they would, kind of bash us, whatever, or bash on Christianity in general. But, I remember saying this on several occasions to these combative type of people. Even with Lair of the Exiles, I use this one all the time because it usually shuts people up pretty quick. I was like, okay, let's say you're right, random kid that doesn't like me. Let's say you're right, and then Jesus never existed. And all of this is bullshit. He was never here, even though we know historically that guy existed, but that's besides the point. Yeah. Let's just say, for argument's sake, this dude, straight up fake news, right? If we all actually lived the way he treated people, now, whether you want to call it a story, the Bible, fact, fiction, doesn't matter. If we echoed what that person did and how he treated people, would the world be a better place? Or to be a worse place.
Exactly.
And that always stumped these people because they start to realize, like, what are you going to say to that?
Yeah, what if you...
it doesn't mean that you have to bend the knee and pledge allegiance to this character. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm simply asking you to challenge yourself. Like, if we all treated each other that way, would the world be a better place or a worse place?
Exactly.
And, that always got people thinking, and that's really what the goal is here. It's not to convert people or whatever. Like I said, my beliefs are significantly in a different spot and everything. But if you think about that, if we all treated each other like he treated people, what do you think the world would look like?
Oh yeah.
And now to be fair, that statement could be mirrored by, somebody like Buddha, who is very similar, almost eerily similar, the backstory, the same thing. or
Little
somebody
more
like,
weight in the stomach.
but there's a lot of figures like that.
Oh yeah.
If we all treated people like that, whether you think it's fact or fiction, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like we all treated people like Rocky. All right, Rocky's a fictional character, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
whatever. I mean, maybe that's not the best example.
Oh, what about Gandhi?
Yeah,
Gandhi was a good guy.
Yeah, he's a good dude. Billy Zane. Yes.
He's a really good dude.
There's you could pick any example of that, but like that's kind of why I always get frustrated with religious wars or fights or
People
arguments.
bashing
It's like, come on, man,
like
just do your thing, right? And be that. Because if you're really, let's say, Christian or Christ-like, why are you even arguing with somebody?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah,
why he didn't go around putting people in a headlock, being like,
no.
worship me or I'll bash your fucking head in. Like, that's not what he did. So why are you doing that? Like, why? And that goes for not just obviously extreme anything, whether it's Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism. There's extremes in everything. I don't care what anybody says.
There's always a bad apple.
Always. So if you're going around forcing people to see things your way, you're not real.
Yeah.
You're not really following the doctrine that you claim to adhere to, because what religion does that? Like, find me anywhere in the Quran, the Bible, the Torah, the Bhagavad Gita. Find anything in any of those books that tells me it's okay to just start killing people who don't agree with you.
Oh yeah, I know.
You will not find it.
Yeah, no.
You'll not find it. You'll try to, maybe some people try to be super intellectual and be like, well, this is like an eagle clawing the enemies. That means I can kill you. Like, no, it doesn't.
The best is when they take the little insert, out of whatever they're saying, just the one little one that, like, if you do this, you should go off and do that to that person or something like that. And they're like, look there. But did you read before and after? Like, you're just trying to snare people into believing what
100%. And you think you're minimizing your own value in the world, because take what you've learned and be that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's just like, man, I lost my train of thought.
We got deep here. We got deep.
I got lost in the deepness here. But but yeah, it's if you're using all your energy to try to disprove someone, or like, bash them or bash whatever they're doing, it's like you could be using that energy for something more positive, learning why, or learning about them, so you're more well educated, like, I don't know anything about Islam, like, I only know what I see on TV, that's bad. I should learn more about it, because there's a bunch of bad apples in the orchard, you could say, with that, like, people do it in the wrong, in the wrong name of, like, they're doing it in the name of whoever or whatever, or using his name in the wrong way, like blowing themselves up or other people up or whatever.
They're not a true representation.
But that's the thing. They're not representing it right, or being like the true Islam, like, they're just, like I said, it's just a bad apple in the pie,
You get hit with a bullet, you all bleed the same color. That's the thing. People's ego is what's driving all of that. It doesn't necessarily have to be about religion. It could be political. It could be social, economical. It could be anything. It's just like, as a student of Stoicism, you learn very quickly when you really dive into that how dangerous the ego can be. You can find examples in history of great men and women who are doing great things right up until the point where their ego did them in. You know what I mean? This is in a book I read. A good example is Grant, the Civil War general.
Okay.
Phenomenal general.
Oh, yeah.
Like, one of the greatest tactical minds, arguably, blah, 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 right? But then he ran for president. Okay, and that's when it all went to shit. Exactly, because
politics, it's always the downfall.
That wasn't his thing. He wasn't cut out for it, whatever. Yeah. But he, in his own head, maybe he was thinking like, no, I could do this. Why can't I? You know what I mean? And it's like, think about how many times you in your own life have gotten yourself into a sticky situation because of that. Gosh. Because you do one thing and you're like, I could do that. Or this is not going to be a big deal. I can get away with this. I can do this. Whatever the case is, like, we've all done it. We've all done it.
Oh, absolutely.
And then next thing you know, you're in over your head, or you're in some serious trouble or whatever. And it's kind of like, we're always
I still do that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, but I feel like we're always forced subconsciously to compare ourselves to others.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that's that we got to stop doing that. We just got to be okay with being us.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that's what's cool about conversations like this is because you know, as close as you and I are, I'm sure there's things if we dug deep enough, we'd find that we'd be like, well, I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah,
you know, I'm sure we can do that, but that's not what drives us.
No,
you know, and that's what does drive some people. But you know, that's the cool thing about these conversations. And like, I'm looking forward to, I got some people coming on the show shortly that I don't know, which is going to be a first for me. They're friends of friends that heard the podcast and like, oh, I kind of want to do one of those. And I'm just like, cool, great. It's exciting for me because I don't even know this person and I don't know if we're going to end up arguing or whatever, you know, I doubt it. But you know, it's kind of cool because I feel like these are, you know, what a good example is Stray from the Path, right? Remember John?
Hell yeah.
I don't know if you remember the infamous cabin tour, right? Where their trailer got stolen.
Oh, I remember that one.
John and I repeatedly got into this debate about communism. I don't know if you ever remembered this.
Yeah, no,
like we were constantly, but the thing, when I say debate, I don't mean we were yelling, we were screaming. We were having like these discussions that were deep to the point of probably annoying everyone around us, especially when they all had to jump in our van or whatever. Yeah. But, you know, it started with him kind of teasing me and then me teasing him back to the point where I was like, okay, you know, seriously, tell me what your thing is. And then he explained where he was coming from. And then I'm like, okay, I never saw it that way, blah, blah. So we had like this tour-long debate. And at the end of it, he felt the same way. And I felt the same way. But
I love when that happens.
But that's okay because the beauty is in the education. And the elevation of respect that we had for one another after having this time together, realizing like, oh, here's a guy that I can talk to about something I don't agree with or I don't like or I don't feel the same way about, whatever you want to say, and vice versa. And here we are, still friends, still playing, you know, whatever. Like none of that shit got affected.
Oh yeah.
But we had this, you know, and that was like so cool to me, and I love doing stuff like that. So I'm excited to have people that might, you know, give me a run for my money here.
It's good to get to know, like, you know, new people or just, you know, people that you know, but you don't know, you know, as deep as that. Like what they think about something or what they feel about, you know, like communism. You know, like I personally, I don't really know much about communism. I only know that people say it's good on paper, and that's the only thing I know. But I mean, would I like to know more about it? I would, because I guarantee you it's probably interesting whether I agree with it or not. You know, anything educational like that is always interesting. But you know,
well, there's a good challenge for yourself, Matt. Why don't you go get a book on it or something?
Oh yeah, I probably will.
Or pick something else. It doesn't have to be that.
Well, what you said? What is it that you wrote on in the article? It was
Pocket Stoic.
Okay,
it's a stoicism.
I don't even know what stoicism. Am I saying right?
Yes,
stoicism.
Yeah. Well, you've heard the expression like he's very stoic.
I've heard, yes.
Right. So you know, classically speaking, that word was used to describe somebody who looks like very like emotionless.
Okay.
So a lot of people think that the philosophy of stoicism is not having any feelings, which is not accurate.
No, was there a gentleman that started this, or a lady? Or?
There was, but it was made most popular by Marcus Aurelius. That's who you would know, not
like in
Zeno or anybody like
in Gladiator, like the Marcus Aurelius. Okay.
Yes. So there was a quote unquote founder and some like early like Epictetus and Seneca, guys that you might not have heard of.
Okay.
But Marcus Aurelius is the one who made it famous, I guess, or I shouldn't say famous. You know what I mean? Because he wrote a book, but he didn't write a book. He kept a journal.
Scroll
that ended up being released as a book called Meditations. I actually gave my copy to Paul, who says hi, by the way.
Oh yeah, hello Paul. If you're listening,
and he will. So I gave my copy to him to read. But so he kept this journal, and it was years later released as a book, and that's the most widely known. Epictetus and Seneca are probably close second and third to being well known. But basically, you know, it's a philosophy that, in a nutshell, you know, you realize that nothing has power over you outside of yourself. And, you know, you are really in control. And the things that you can control, you don't even pay attention to. You don't let them consume you. And there's a lot of facets to it, you know, and I'd be happy to recommend you or loan you a book, whatever, if you want to read more about it. But there's a lot of facets to it. And one of the more, one of the more not so pleasant sounding things of it is realizing that you're going to die. Right.
Well,
and not fearing death is part of that, but also living every day like it's your last. That's, I'm sure you've heard that phrase.
Oh,
that stems from early Stoic principles.
Yeah.
And, you know, understanding that the art of life is more like wrestling than dancing, because you're constantly bombarded with adversity and the ability to not let it get to you, you know. And it's funny because your intro to this episode, and this is almost with every one of my guests, has a certain level of Stoic qualities to them. And that principle that's the quote I was looking for. Now I really have to find it, because now what kind of Stoic am I? But your whole what can't break you makes you stronger kind of vibe, also very reminiscent. Stoic. Yeah.
Now, is there a gentleman that was of newer, like closer to like not so far back, I guess you could say, that had the same kind of like, but like wrote about it or was like followed?
Yeah, there's a lot of military leaders throughout the years. John Boyd was one of them. He was a famous pilot. But Viktor Frankl, who was a very famous psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, which I told Valentino to read. He has very stoic kind of qualities, some of which helped him get through the Holocaust. Especially when you think about what those guys went through. And if you read that book, the whole first half of the book is very tough. Okay. Because the whole first half of that book is his experience.
I can imagine.
In the concentration camp. And how he navigated that still blows my mind. How anybody did.
Yeah, that's just...
I mean, this guy wrote a book, obviously. But, just kind of mind-blowing. But then recently, in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of... there's almost been like a resurgence in it. And guys like Tim Ferriss, I don't know if you've heard that name before. He wrote like the 4-Hour Work Week. He's like an entrepreneur, kind of motivational dude. Okay. But the way I kind of found it was through a guy about our age. He might be a couple of years younger than us. I don't remember. A guy named Ryan Holiday, who wrote... I read his first book, at least I think it's his first book, years ago, and it's called Trust Me, I'm Lying, and it's about marketing. Obviously, that's why I picked it up. And he was like the youngest marketing director at American Apparel, and like one of the youngest marketing directors ever. He was kind of like a boy genius kind of deal. Okay. And then he went through a lot of stuff in his life and blah, blah. He ended up finding Stoicism. So he wrote a book called The Obstacle is the Way. Okay. So I read that. I knew Marcus Aurelius, but like you do, like the Roman emperor. Like I didn't know him as a philosopher. And then I read that book and read his other book called Ego is the Enemy. And that kind of, I guess, hearing like a modern take on it kind of got me like more interested in where it came from. Okay. So then after that, I read literally everything I can get my hands on. All of Seneca, which is very difficult to read. I'm sure. Epictetus, which is still, I kind of suck at reading. But all of Aurelius' stuff, and then even further back than that. And then there's some modern Stoics. There's a guy right in the city, a professor named Massimo Pilagucci, who's from really the old familiar. Neighborhood. He, they do these meetups and stuff in the city, and then I got involved with Pocket Stoic, and I've been writing articles and helping with that. So I just kind of like fell into this world because I found that I already related to so many of the principles before even studying any of it. Like I found myself more naturally aligned with most of it without even knowing. And I guess that's why I was drawn to it so passionately, because it was like, that's kind of how I am anyway. What the heck? I didn't know there was like a club I can join or whatever. You know what I mean? But I found the quote I was looking for. Okay. It's long.
I hear that often.
But, oh, damn. So, damn, I'm sorry it's so long. I apologize, everybody. But when your opening reminded me of this, and that's why I was like furiously looking for it, because I memorized some of it, but not all of it. Okay, so it's Marcus Aurelius, and it's from Meditations.
Okay.
When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own, not of the same blood and birth, but the same mind, and possessing a share of the divine. And so none of them can hurt me. No one can implicate me in ugliness, nor can I feel angry at my relative or hate him. We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the 2 rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural. To feel anger at someone, to turn your back on him, these are all unnatural. So, sorry, long quote, but
that was very deep.
Yeah, so that's what I thought of when you started this episode. I was like, I gotta find this quote, and it's so long. So judge me, all of you, judge me for not memorizing that. But geez,
that's a long one. Huh?
Yeah, so it's not so much a quote as it is an entry, I guess. But yeah, that's one of those things where I read it and I was like, damn, damn, I kind of. Yeah, you know what I mean? So, and I encourage you and anybody who's listening to, find your moment. It doesn't have to be stoicism. Okay. I never wanted this to be a stoic podcast because I didn't feel like that would really add value to anybody hearing about the same thing over and over again. I wanted to bring people in and learn where they're coming from. Yeah. And, just because you don't have a label to call yourself or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just about learning from each other and incorporating. And it's like, I use this analogy a lot. It's okay to like iPhone and Android. You're allowed to like both, everybody. Okay, so
wow.
So it's okay to it's okay to like Marcus Aurelius and to read the Anarchist Cookbook or whatever. That's probably a bad analogy, but pick 2 things that are completely different. It's okay. It's okay to learn from anything. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you shouldn't be reading that or you shouldn't be learning. The hell with that, man. Learn as much as you can about the things that interest you, and that's
that's what
it's about.
It's funny because there's a lot of not a lot, but I've come across in my years of being a Christian, a lot of families that try to, keep their children away from the world, and thinking about that, it's like, okay, I get it. But at the same time, it's like, you need to know about this world that we live in. You need to experience it, or you're not going to survive, I mean, I grew up a Christian, and I'm not saying that I lived in the big bad world of wherever, and I was straight out of Centerport, it's like
what?
Yeah, it's like it's desolate, and there's a lot of rich people there. We were not rich, but there was a lot of rich people there. But you need to get out there and experience stuff and know who you're dealing with. Like, basically, you need to know who your enemy is, like, I'm not saying that, you have to go out there guns a-blazing, but you need to know what, even if you have a dislike, you need to know what your dislike is, you need to know about it. So you're not fully ignorant about it if someone comes at you with it, you need to be educated with everything. You can't, if you turn a corner and you see a homeless person, you run because you're like, oh my God, they're gonna, I don't know, mug me or something. And meanwhile, they probably can't even get up because they haven't eaten in 3 days or something like that. You need to experience everything. I feel like being on tour, I'm not saying we experienced everything, but we experienced a lot,
yeah,
a lot of different people, walking around in Georgia, or just
some people floating around.
Yeah. I keep bringing up Georgia, but it's just one of those memories.
Random goth girl incidents.
Yeah.
That wasn't as bad as you think, by the way. That's not what it doesn't mean what some of you are probably thinking. No. But I had some kind of pheromone. I don't know. Don't ask.
Everywhere. But, just experience, go to a different state, go to a different country. Going to a different country is mind blowing. Mm-hmm. How people live in other countries. It's just
and how they drink in other countries.
How they drink, even how they use the bathroom in other countries is like
three
it's
seashells.
Just like wow, oh yeah. Well,
I
more
remember
like the shelf.
I remember. Oh man, I remember so much about Europe. So much fun. But I remember in Berchtesgaden. Remember that crazy show? We had to play our set like twice.
That was the best show, I think, ever. Hands down. It's just
hands down. But
it was so chaotic.
Remember
just
when the kid
together
smashed his beer glass in front of you, and we thought we're gonna fight this dude?
I thought it was on. I was like, all right, we're getting locked up in Germany. It's happening.
And then they let us run the bar.
Yeah.
And then the bar ran out of alcohol.
Thank God it did.
Jeez,
those kids wanted to get me hammered, and I was like, no.
Oh, you were feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I was feeling good.
German beer
until
a little stronger than
somehow I was surrounded by girls at one point.
I remember.
And then all of a sudden they disappeared, and I was surrounded by dudes.
I remember that as well.
Maybe it's some kind of pheromone. I don't know. But it's like you got to get out there.
I was almost remember that couple that wanted to kill me or whatever they wanted to do. All right, so we played that. Oh man, you'll remember when I start telling the story.
Oh, I know.
Last tour story, I promise.
Wait, it wasn't the train spotting couple, was it?
Well, no, maybe. I don't know. So we played that show, remember, in like, I think it was like Eastern Germany. So a lot of the kids didn't speak English. Yeah. And I remember that show, I was wearing an H2O basketball jersey. What up? But anyway, so this couple came to the table and he wanted to use songs from The Harvest for a slasher movie. That he was making.
Yeah, that's right.
I was like, yeah, sure. Probably should check with the label, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Do it. Do it. It'd be awesome. Yeah. So use it for your horror movie.
Politics,
great.
Man.
So then he was asking if we had a place to stay. No. He just said, do you have a place to stay? And I turned to you guys and I was like, hey guys, where are we staying tonight? And he like grabs my shoulder, and him and his girlfriend or whatever are standing like super close to each other, and he grabs my shoulder and pulls me towards him. He's like, no, just you. Remember that shit?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, no.
It's about to be like a hostile moment there.
I don't know what was going on. But it's amazing. It makes you feel like so. And this is also, by the way, kids, pre-iPhone.
Oh yeah.
Pre-Wi-Fi everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Like finding Wi-Fi, we all, I think, shared my computer to like use the video chat on AIM to talk to our families or loved ones. Like, it was like I controlled, the food supply by having a laptop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then finding Wi-Fi, it wasn't like everywhere you can go, you can get Wi-Fi. Yeah, and this is also Europe, which is actually probably ahead of us at this point. Eastern Europe, So yeah, it was pretty eye-opening experience. But anything that puts you outside your comfort zone, I feel like you learn a lot about yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And how, it's funny. It's like, you feel really powerless in another country. Because like it's not like, I don't know, just like here in America, you're like, okay, like even if I get arrested, at least I'm in America. Well, when you're over in Germany, we got pulled over and they pull you over from the front, which is very odd.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
And
Paul still loves that story because about the cigarettes.
Oh my gosh. Just them walking up to the van and they're,
MP5s, everything. Yeah.
It's no like Glock, with just like, what is it? Like nine shot, what do you call it? Rounds? I don't know.
Yeah, you can say rounds. Sure.
I don't know.
But no, they had HK submachine guns and blouse their boots like they were special forces.
And when they say if you have drugs and you tell us it'll be okay, but if you have drugs and we find it, it's not okay. We have a problem.
And then there was a problem with the rental paperwork, which had nothing to do with us.
It's very makes you feel
You realize how small you are.
Yeah,
imagine what an astronaut feels like.
Oh my goodness! Like you know what? I do contemplate that sometimes. Like it's
like
like
got to get up there, like looking down at the earth and being like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, like you're not on Earth. Like I think about it. Like just imagine having to look at Earth. Like it's just not something.
Like
I don't know.
You just got to picture. Like I just imagine like Felix Baumgartner too, the Red Bull guy that's skydived from space. Like because that shot's so clear because it was all these GoPro cameras and everything. But I remember watching that live and thinking like, he's got to be thinking like people are fighting down there over like what to do for dinner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, I don't know, it's got to be so mind blowing. I would love to do that.
It is. And they're just being like, wow, like that's like, like I'm one person out of like, whatever, billions of people that, and, probably only, well, he was the only person that skydived, I guess, or atmosphere. I don't even know what you want to call it.
No, people have, I don't know. He broke the record at the time. Other people have done it now, but just the point that my man skydived from space. Right. But that's beside. I mean,
the first person.
Yeah, Kittinger did it too.
Oh, he did? Oh, I don't know. First person on GoPro. 60s? I don't know.
No, he broke the sound barrier. With his body.
Just that. He
did a lot of firsts. He was the highest altitude at the time. Yeah, speed record, free fall record. I think he almost had. It doesn't matter. It's
not
just
many
crazy.
People have looked down at the Earth.
Yeah,
it's
got to be better than any drug.
It's an elite club, like the elite of all elite clubs. But it's just got to be like so. Like, that has got to keep someone up at night just thinking about stuff.
Oh, yeah.
He's probably like the deepest person you'll probably ever meet. Maybe I don't know.
It's got to be humbling. That reminds me of you remember Brian Regan, the stand-up comedian. He has this bit where he's complaining about having to go out to dinner with his wife and their friends all the time, and how there's always this one guy that has to be the spotlight. Like, I'm the CEO. I have stocks and bonds. Check out my Ferrari, etc. Right? And then he's like, "Can you imagine going to a dinner party like that with like Buzz Aldrin or one of the Apollo astronauts? Like, so Bill, what do? I walked on the moon." You know what I mean? Like, just like
got a cup of dirt.
Just like completely just shutting down that asshole person. Like, so what do? Like, well, I walked on the moon. Like, you
got no rebuttal.
Yeah, you got no rebuttal. Pretty funny. But anyway,
so it's, you got to get out there and experience everything.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you very much. I had a great time.
Yeah, me too. Hey.
And I really appreciate you coming by and finally getting on an episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course.
It's an honor.
Sure we'll have you back at some point.
Yeah, my schedule's open.
Yeah. All right, so I just want to give a quick moment and thank Derek and the Big Mosh Podcasting Network for helping me out with this show. I'm going to put a link to the Patreon for that network in the description here. Make sure you check out. There's a lot of really cool shows on that network. Make sure you check them out. Check out the Patreon. Help everybody keep doing these if you're getting value out of them. It really means a lot to us. I also want to thank my friends at Sennheiser, taking good care of me, and all you guys for listening, sending me messages, commenting. I really appreciate it. And I'm sorry again for the delay between episodes. I should be back on track now. Life has a way of just, being life. But once again, I want to thank Matt.
Well, thank you.
As always, Murdoch in the corner over there, just being judgmental.
And he's a good guy.
All right, thanks again, man.
Thank you.